Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started in today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama, parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm good, other than my entire staff thinking a bounty hunter was looking for me this morning.
Wow, that was wild. This dude comes busting in the door right after Bradley's staff meeting this morning. And I'm sitting in the waiting room kind of area, but out in, where everybody sits in their desk. And he comes busting in and he goes, "I'm looking for Bradley Flowers." And everybody was like, he's right there.
And it didn't help that he had a shirt on that said he was with a security company.
It did. Yeah.
It's
crazy.
The new space we're moving into, we're getting the keys all set up and everything. And he was supposed to come yesterday, and I think his boss got on him a little bit this morning because he forgot to come. So he came in with
he came in hot.
Yeah, he came in hot, but he's over there now working on it.
So Bradley, right before we came on this podcast, before we intro our all-star guest on today, which I am wildly interested in talking to, we were talking about people in this industry and how this industry, the insurance industry, is a long tail game. It is a 20-year kind of deal, really. It's hard. It's hard to be super successful, even though a lot of us have enjoyed some level of success. But it's hard to do it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and then call the ball and go do something else. You really need to stick with it. And what the part of this discussion that Bradley and I were having that I didn't get to because I wanted to bring it up on the podcast is I was talking to Aaron Robertson, I guess a month ago, and Aaron was talking about being burned out. And I said, "Aaron, I'll tell you what I think you need to do. Here's what you need to do. You need to treat your agency the way Bradley treats his agency. I don't believe that Bradley Flowers looks at what he does as the insurance industry. You just look at it as the game of business."
Correct.
And
I actually hate insurance. I like the business of insurance.
Almost like you're the college CEO coach. This is a football game. We're playing the game of business. Looking at it from a different lens, from a different perspective, might allow somebody to kind of get out of a funk, so to speak,
Yeah, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, that you need to treat your business as a business you own, not a business you run, whether you run it or not. Like Warren Buffett owns Geico, but it's just one of the companies he owns. And that's not to say you need to own a bunch of companies. That's not what I'm saying. Because the conversation that led to that was people do something for 2 or 3 years, they have a little bit of success, and they get bored because the process of starting a business is a lot of fun. Right. But then once you kind of get into it and things start playing off, that can get boring.
Yeah, it's the new girlfriend. Everything's fun, everything's exciting. The hot dirty monkey sex, and everything's great. And then all of a sudden, it's like you get into this day-to-day minutia of, oh my God, another problem.
But at the same time, you need to recognize that when you need to step back in, too.
Right?
And like we're doing that right now. There's a couple things in Portal that I'm taking back over, right? But yeah, if you treat it like you're running it at a high level, whether you are or not, it I think allows you to kind of step away a little bit. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give people if they're trying to get to that point and get out of the grind is leave for 2 weeks. Just leave.
L-E-A-V.
Just take a 2-week vacation. And then
you'll find out real quick.
Well, what happens is the days and weeks leading up to you leaving, your brain goes to a different place where you think, oh, I don't have anybody else that does this. I need to delegate that out. And I'm doing that right now. We're about to have our 4th kid. By the time this releases, we'll have had our 4th kid. I just got so much anxiety saying that. Um, and so I'm doing that now. Like this morning, I was on the computer at the house, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to show Shelby how to do this. And so that happens, and then what happens is while you leave, stuff breaks. Those are the things you fix first. And then the key is when you do come back, you don't take those things back over.
Right.
They're delegated out.
Right.
So
I want to introduce our all-star guest today. Now, my favorite thing to do on this podcast is it's a toss-up. It's like 1A and 1B. This podcast, we're here to help insurance agents any way we can. It is a three-legged stool. We try to have very successful agency owners on this podcast. That's one leg of the stool. The second leg is technologies in the insurance industry, and we'll chop it up with technology vendors that are introducing or have a product that serves insurance agents. The third leg of the stool, ladies and gentlemen, may very well be my favorite. It is people like our guest today who like to talk about leadership, storytelling, successful leadership styles, things like that. And I'm so excited to have her on. I've got 1,000 questions I want to ask her today. So without further ado, I want to give her the introduction that she's always deserved. She is originally from Freeport, Maine, and she currently resides in Pompano Beach, Florida. She is a graduate of the University of Miami with a Bachelor's of Health Science and the University of Southern California with a Master's in Physician Assistant Practice.
I'm noticing a theme in the schools
with
the good weather.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Right. And she lives in Florida. So there you go. She is a fractional strategic advisor, executive coach, and leadership development partner specializing in founder-led businesses. After spending 20 years as a dermatology PA, essentially serving as chief of staff to a physician founder, she has caught the entrepreneurship bug and built 3 businesses of her own, including a global consumer product brand and 2 consulting companies. This unique combination of human behavior expertise, business ownership, and multi-level leadership experience gives her a rare perspective on what it takes to advance without self-doubt. There's Scott. Self-doubt, constant chaos, or unnecessary conflict slowing momentum. She helps
Well, she hit you on the head right there.
I'm telling you, man, right in the jewels. She helps business owners position for growth, exit, or succession by developing the strategic leadership capacity to make confident decisions, build high-performing teams, and navigate the emotional complexities of leading a family or founder-first business. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you first-time guest on the IGP, Miss Kasey D'Amato. How are you, Kasey?
Hey, thanks for that intro. I think I want you to read that every day when I wake up.
Kasey, I think where I want to start today is and you are so welcome. You deserve that. You have a resume of success. But where I want to start today is you make a statement in here about, without a glamour style, I have celebrity contacts in my phone who know me personally. I think this needs to be a celebrity call-in show today where we take your celebrity contacts, you call them live on the IGP. You don't have to say anything. Just tell me with their first and last name. And when they answer, I'll just lead into it. I'll just go with it. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking, by the way. It is such an honor to have you on the show today. I am so excited to let you talk to the 50,000 independent insurance agents that are out there watching this and listening to this right now. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about the new book that you're writing right now, and let's just get into it.
Yeah, so you did a great job with that intro. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I love your energy. Yes, I'm in the process of writing a book, which is why I am out here speaking on amazing podcasts like yours. And I speak a lot and actually work a lot with insurance agents. One of my favorite industries is insurance. Anything that touches health and wealth and protects people. obviously I have a medical background, so taking care of people is in my nature, and also entrepreneurship. As you said, I did start 3 businesses when I took global, and it's my passion to pay it forward and help others. So I operated both as a chief of staff, so from inside business and helping grow, as well as growing my own. And with my background in human psychology and understanding people and how people work, I combine that and with the business acumen and help people really understand emotional intelligence and leadership from a different perspective. And that's what I'm excited to chat about today. I love insurance because it's bootstrappy. Insurance, there's oftentimes a founder that is passionate when they start, and whether they stay long term or not is always the question. Whether they decide they want to grow and treat it as a what I call a real business versus stay what I call a solopreneur is always an internal struggle for a lot of people, especially in insurance. And I think that it's one of the industries where there is a lot of opportunity, and there's also a lot of self-sabotage. And I'm happy to dive into all of that with you today.
So you heard Bradley and I our brief conversation before we brought you on, talking about he and I are in a very unique position right now in that we have multitudes of friends who have been in this business, some as little as 8 to 10 years, some 20, 30 years. But we have a lot of friends in this business that are selling their agency, and sometimes it's odd because some people sell their agency and they're out of their agency in a month, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some have like a buy or earn out, if you will, where they have to stay 36 months or even 5 years.
Yep.
But it's a unique position that he and I are in, because it's almost like a once a week thing where one of us finds out that somebody we've known for 5 or 10 years is now selling their agency, and
Well, what you have in insurance, especially on the independent side, is you get people that are really good producers or really good agency employees, and
Yep.
they're just not in a situation where they can really maximize their potential to the full capacity.
Yeah.
And because every independent agency is ran differently. Whereas on the captive side, you have more structure and
You do.
training and things, and there's a pathway to owning your own agency one day if you want to do that. And so these people, they get in these agencies and they're not in a situation that is right for them. And the only other logical choice is to just start another agency. And there's 2 things with that. Is one, they try to start and run the agency as a producer. And for that first year, 18 months, new business solves all your problems. Well, then around that time, new business starts creating more problems. And you have to build processes and systems, and they end up stuck.
Yep.
Or you have a lot of people running agencies that would actually be phenomenal number 2 or number 3s at
Yes.
another agency, but that situation wasn't available. And COVID helped a little bit because that sort of blew the world up in terms of like remote work and things like that. Before that, you were only privy to what agencies were in your market. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle. I was having a conversation with a consultant one time, and she said that she calls 750 to $1 million in revenue no man's land at agencies, because that's the point where you have to start implementing processes. You can't really grow past that without the processes. You need some form of hybrid middle management. And most people are so addicted to new business, they can't take a step back and do that, and they get stuck. Coincidentally, the average independent agency in America is 750 to $1 million in revenue. So like the math checks out on that. And that, I think that's the biggest problem. And it's taken me and Scott, like, we have to grow ourselves as leaders to get past that.
100%.
You know?
100%. And that's really something I've had to look myself in the mirror lately and say, you've got to grow as a leader, and you've got to be willing to delegate things, and in order to really be able to grow the agency and scale the agency, I still say to this day, the first thing you got to do is hire great people. It is really tough to scale a business if you got a bunch of shitbirds working in it. And so finding the right people and putting the right people on the right seats on the bus is so important if you're going to ever scale a business. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree 100%. I think, I went to a business event hosted by Tony Robbins. I don't know if either of you are familiar with Tony. And
Hey, by the way,
yes,
secret time. Can we just me and you talk for a second?
yes,
I've romantically always wanted to go to that event down in Miami where you get to walk across hot coals.
yes, yep.
I want to go do that. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, you did that. I've done that a couple times. I've been to 11 Tony events. They're all great. But there was one particular event that was a business event, and he captured exactly what you're talking about really perfectly. I think it was him or one of the speakers. There's a triad for success in any business. The first step of the triangle is the producer, the worker, the one that is generating the income. And that's where a lot of people start, especially insurance is very common. Obviously, that's where everybody starts. And then the next step is the manager leader. So the people that are very strong at building the process and building the team. And that's where, just to your point, most people get stuck, whether it's insurance or other industries. It's typically in the high six figures, right around seven figures. That manager leader strategy, that manager leader traits need to be developed either in the core founder or bringing in somebody that has those traits. And then the third step, which is technically really the first step, is the core visionary. Who is the person that is leading towards the long-term goal? So is the long-term goal to build this and exit, just like you're talking about so many of your colleagues are doing? Is the long-term goal succession for the next generation? What is the long-term goal? Is the long-term goal just to generate income and then wind it down? What is the plan here? So who's the visionary that's leading the ship, that's steering the ship forward? And so, when you look at that triangle, it becomes really obvious. And in any stage of business, do you have a clear visionary? Do you have a strong manager leader, people that are strong with processes and building the team? And do you have the right people that are the producers? And when you have all three of those, then you can scale. And if you're missing one of those three, you get stuck.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, Bradley mentioned before we got on this podcast. Well, before we get to that, I want to put a bow on what we're talking about right now. You just said the triangle, the three legs of that stool, and you just described what they were. How would a leader like Scott or Bradley identify that if either themselves or their business was weak in one of those areas? How do we identify that? And then what steps do we need to take, to fix that? I guess it would depend on which leg of the stool we're talking about here, or the triangle.
Yep.
Go ahead. I want to hear this.
It's a pretty quick assessment. If you were to ask yourself when you wake up in the morning, the one thing that is the most annoying to you today, what is the number one biggest fire drill, the biggest annoyance today? It's for some people, they're worried about the bank account, the cash flow, right? So then we're looking at the producer leg of the stool. Do we have the right producers? Are we generating the right amount of cash? Cash is the blood flow, right? So if that's your biggest headache when you wake up in the morning, is you're worried about making payroll, paying the bills, paying yourself, right? Then that leg of the stool probably needs to be evaluated. Are there the right processes, the right, methodologies in the sales and the producer's cycle, the right product offerings, all of that, right? If you're waking up in the morning and it's not the bank account, it's just complete chaos, like time, overwhelm, burnout. You're just like, I'm freaking over this business already. Then that's usually a manager leader issue. It's not so much that the producer in the sales cycle is broken, not that leg. It is the manager leader. It's either the processes are not clear, they haven't been communicated, they're not being followed. Sometimes they're developed and they're actually not implemented or followed, or, which is really common, you don't have the right team built out. You don't have the right team to be able to execute in their lane to keep the machine moving forward. The visionary piece is, that's the founder, that's the CEO. Hopefully, if you are in business, you're running an agency, you want to grow your agency, hopefully you have a clear vision for where you want to go. If not, it's time to do that at the end of this show and figure out, what do you want from this machine that you're building? because
Sure.
you can't make any other decision if you don't know the end goal. I call it the Polaris point on the treasure map. If you're looking at the board game and you're looking at Candyland and you're trying to get to the end goal, you've got to know what that Polaris point is. What are you building, and where do you want it to be? Do you want to build a big agency? Do you want to have a big exit? Well, in that case, get out of your own way and start building the team and the process and look at your sales
Right.
cycle.
Well, it's sort of like the I'll tell you, the business owner that always cracks me up is the one that optimized their entire career for tax savings,
Yes.
and then they try to sell their business, and either their books are just a complete mess,
Yes.
or the value's not there because you have all these expenses that you don't need. You know what I mean?
Correct. That's right. The tax benefit, look, there's a lot of ways that we can talk to our CPA friends, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity as a business owner for tax benefits. So that is a beautiful part of being a business owner. However, it is not always the
Yeah.
way to position for the exit. That's for sure.
So I was
Yeah.
playing around on Claude a couple weeks ago, April 15th, right? And we took a big deduction this year on a piece of real estate that saved us a lot of money. And Claude knew
Yep.
a lot about my tax situation. And so I had our projected income for this year, and I said, I want you to tell me how I can pay 0 federal income taxes next year. Create the plan.
Uh-oh.
And Claude gave me some stuff that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And then it said, but honestly, if you waste time doing this, you could just make more money. And then you end up with the same result either way.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
was
Look how
like,
smart
thank you for
Claude is.
being honest, Claude.
Hey, watch out when you tell Claude, because it's not protected. Claude
Yeah.
reports to the powers that be.
Oh yeah. 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 That is a really good point though, is where do you want to take your business, and then back into your decisions. It's
Correct.
sort of like the infinite game with Simon Sinek. Like, the people that really win are the ones that play the game to play it forever, not to some sort of finite ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
So-
joy is in the journey. So if the journey is not joyful, then you're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I agree with that to some degree, but I will also say that I think this business that we are in, the industry that we are in, because of the long play game that you have to play, this is not an industry that you can jump into for a year or two and then jump out and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
A lot of people have tried that. That is tough to do. I guess a few people have done it. I don't know.
Well, I was actually having a conversation with Raghav Tana the other day, and he was mentioning, he was talking to a tech founder that got a big exit offer. And this tech founder was a former insurance agent. And he was like, dude, take the exit. He's like, tech is not like an insurance. In insurance, the longer you're in business, the more valuable your company gets.
Sure.
It is not that way in tech. It's very
Correct.
cyclical. The first company that exits in a certain sector usually gets the big payday.
Right.
The second one's a little less. The third one's a little less.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you have to find the happiness, and you have to, as we were talking when we first got on this podcast, I think do what Bradley's done and treat it as the game of business, because every day there are challenges, every day there are problems. But in order, just what Bradley got out of his mouth, in order to really, do well at the end of the game, you have to stay in the game for some period of time. It's not a quick fix type business, which, by the way, is also why the insurance P&C business doesn't lend itself to partnerships or silent investors, because, as you've always said, what are investors wanting? Well, they're wanting to put their money in something and a few years later get it out. And that's just not really what we are about here.
If you
Would
want
agree?
if you want a 10% return, that's when you invest in insurance.
Right.
And exit after 3 years.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk about EQ for a minute. I know I've listened to my friend and great American, Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk, talk a lot about EQ, emotional intelligence. Talk to our listening audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, that Gary Vee is great. He speaks really well on emotional intelligence. So most people think that EQ means managing your own emotions, and that
Mm-hmm.
is step one of being aware of your own emotional state, manage your own. But the real trick and the real strategy about emotional intelligence is when you understand others' emotions and you can influence those. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really a four-step process. Emotional intelligence first is recognizing how you're feeling and accepting how you're feeling. So if you wake up in the morning and there's only two emotional states, positive and negative. All the emotions that you're feeling fall under one of those categories,
Mm-hmm.
meaning negative emotions, frustrated, burnt out, angry, annoyed, right? And obviously the happy emotions, we can go back to our 2-year-old selves, right? And we know all the positive emotions, happy, joyful, and excited, all those things, right? So in the morning you wake up and you were like, how do I feel today? Either I am feeling overly positive about today, or I'm feeling kind of heavy and not so great about today. I'm burnt out, I'm frustrated, whatever it is. So first you identify your state. The second step is you decide that you're going to control your state.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're already in a positive emotional state, fantastic, because positive energy moves fast, negative energy moves slow. So the name of the game with emotional intelligence is to identify how you are in the morning and then say, okay, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm burnt out, whatever it is. I'm angry at somebody, they did something, but I'm not going to stay in the state of mind for very long. So I call it the 2-minute rule. It's a rule that I developed when I was very young as a child. I didn't know at the time I was developing it when I threw a tantrum and my parents said, how long do you want to be in this tantrum and not play? I said 2 more minutes, and they timed me. And in 2 minutes, I stopped crying and went to play. So now I do that as an adult. If I'm angry or frustrated, I say, how long do I want to be this way? How much did this person piss
Mm-hmm.
me off? Am I going to be mad for today, this week, this month? Or am I going to choose to either let it go immediately, or this is something I know I'm going to be mad about this and process it for a day, but tomorrow I'm going to have a conversation. I'm going to address it head on and we're going to be done. I'm going to sleep on it and then I'm going to address it and be done. But I'm putting a time frame on it, on the negative emotion, because if you stay frustrated, burnt out, angry, annoyed, any of those, you're slowing down your business. So the name of the game is to how can you control your emotional state very intentionally? How long do you want
Mm-hmm.
to be in that state, and how are you going to turn it around? And then second is when you're in the positive state, hopefully you're starting your day that way. If you're lucky enough to start your day that way, how are you recognizing in others on your team, your community, their state and positively influencing them, especially people in your team, your clients,
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's in your ecosystem, because people who are in a positive state move fast. That means clients make faster decisions. Your team moves faster. They're more productive. So emotional intelligence is really those four steps: identifying your own, being able to change your own,
Mm-hmm.
identifying in others, and being able to change and impact others. Positive emotions create speed and success. It's well studied in so much neuroscience research. I won't bore you all with that. But the more we are in a negative state or people around us, we make slower decisions, we make poor decisions. We're influenced by that emotion much more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a real world example. So I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old at home. I do more work from 5 to 8 p.m. than I do during the day. And this morning, this morning is an example. Both the kids wake up. They both want juices. So I go to make their juices, and my wife says, hey, the baby likes this cup, so get him this cup. I was like, okay. And he's like, no, 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 I want that cup, the other cup for his. I was like, okay, all right, you can have this one. Give the other one to the brother. He sees the brother with the cup, his original cup. He's like, no, 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 I want that one. They start fighting over the cup. At one point, one of them throws a cup. It goes across the floor. It lands on the floor. Water goes everywhere. Baby slips and falls. Just absolute chaos.
Yep.
So that's how I left the house this morning. That was the last thing I dealt with. And so it's usually something like that every morning.
Yep.
So I have an internal rule that I don't schedule any meetings until 10 o'clock usually. I don't.
Jeff Bezos had that
I
rule.
don't take any phone calls until 10 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
unless it's an emergency. And I need that first 2 hours of the day just to get
Yep.
Reset to level.
answer some emails. See, that's when I do a lot of my like deep work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I have a really, really good chief of staff here. And Cole, when Cole started, he was still new. He came in my office one day. It was kind of an emergency thing. And it was like 9:10. And he stuck his head in the office. He's like, "Hey, I know I'm breaking the first rule, but da 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 da." And I said, "What do you mean first rule?" He's like, "Kenneth tells all the new hires not to bother you until 10 o'clock." I was like, I love that so much. But I think, part of it is like kind of what you said is like recognizing what factors that you can control that get you into the best frame of mind to be the best version of yourself.
Totally. Totally. You're giving yourself your own 2-minute rule with that buffer. Because imagine you walked out the door after the explosion with the toddlers and then got in the car and immediately got a phone call with a fire drill. Like, we're going to react. We're not going to be productive in our response. We're not going to make smart decisions. We're going to be overly reactive to that. It's just human nature.
Yeah. Well, I also think like I love that. And I know I'm a guy and guys like sports, but so much of business can be relayed back to like football, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Nick Saban, as much as I hate the University of Alabama, I think Nick Saban had a 24-hour rule. And the rule was you can celebrate wins for only 24 hours
Yeah.
and you can pout about a loss for only 24 hours.
There you
And then
go.
after that, it's how do we get better? You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Exactly. That's a perfect example to apply in business as well. So if there's something that is amazing and it's a huge win, great, celebrate it for a period of time. And if there's something that's not going well, then you're going to sulk over it for a period of time and then you're going to address it and you're going to have the conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, and I notice it in myself too, to the negative, when we have like a really good solid month financially, the next month I find myself spending money on things that I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think you almost need to like a story I tell it. So Elon has a famous quote that I'm gonna paraphrase, that if you give someone 2 weeks to get something done, they're going to find a way to get it done in 2 weeks. If you give someone 2 hours to get the same task done, they're going to find a way to get it done in 2 hours.
Yes.
Like we increase or decrease our productivity based on the capacity provided. So I had a buddy who started his company the same month I started my company. He started with 10 times the money. And I remember thinking, because we would have these conversations, like, man, they're going to be so much more successful than us. They have so much more resources, deploy capital, things like that. And a couple of years ago, he sold his company, and I considered buying it. So he sent me the financials, and we were the exact same size.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, oh, because they had the extra money, they spent stuff. They gambled more in the sense that, hey, yeah, we'll try this marketing campaign. Oh yeah, we'll try this piece of technology. Whereas if you start with a very, very finite amount of resources, like in the beginning, like I was only spending money on stuff that I knew would work.
Yes.
And then once you grow a little bit, then you gamble a little more. You test things, you try things, right? And
Yes.
I think it kind of speaks to that. It's like you almost need to some degree, operate like you're broke.
Yes.
So you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. That's 1000% true. There's a lot, I sit on some boards for some startup companies, and the less money that is invested into the company, typically the more successful.
Yeah.
The scrappier, they bootstrap, and they find the way to get it done without the capital. And those are the ones that usually make it because they learned how to make that $1 investment, that $1 marketing, that one hire really matter without so much waste. And I think that's a perfect example. It comes back to the point with what you're saying is measuring the results. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make as well when they're early on, is they're not necessarily measuring other than the cash in the bank. So they had a good month. Okay, great. Now they're feeling a little relaxed and they're spending a little bit more, but are they really measuring those KPIs, those key performance metrics, or rocks, whatever you want to call them, depending on whatever
Yeah.
system you're using? Are you looking at those data points? Because if you have 1 month, is that just a fluke? Is that a surprise? Is that just the lottery that month? The universe just, was in your favor that month? Or do you actually have a repeatable process where you can predict based on your data metrics, whether that is your client base or whether that is your leads coming in, if it's a marketing data point, whatever department you're looking at, are you looking at data points in each department of your business, no matter how small it is? Treat your business bigger than it is, even if you're a single agent. Treat your book of business like a real business, even if you're small. If you treat
Right.
your business like a bigger business, it will become a bigger business. If you
Mm.
treat it like a solopreneur single agent, you'll stay that way forever.
Well, and I'll tell you, like I've seen that, because one thing that we do at Portal is we do acquisitions, and I love my like literal favorite thing in the world to do is to get a new acquisition in the pipeline and look at the financials. It's literally my favorite thing in the world. Um, and I've probably looked at 200 agencies in the last 3 years, and a lot of them are on the smaller side, and they're not profitable.
Yeah.
And in 30 minutes, I can make them profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much stuff. Most of it is tied to ego,
Yep.
Mhm.
and I'm like, you eliminate that, you eliminate that, you eliminate that. It's profitable. I even had one that I told the guy, I was like, look, man, like, just do these things. Don't sell to me. Just do these things, and now you're making 200K instead of losing 100.
Right.
You know, and so that kind of takes me to my next point is, and I talk about this when I speak, is most agencies have a Sally or a Ricky that they should have let go 10 years ago,
Yes.
but they don't have the discipline to fire. And
Yes.
I'm gonna roll that into one of my problems. Is I don't have any problem having that conversation, right? Usually, we haven't had to fire that many people, but usually when we do, it's it's done within a couple of hours once we make that decision. Um, Almost, but what I do struggle with are not. I don't struggle with the big confrontation, right? Hey, you screwed up, or hey, we've got to move on, et cetera, et cetera. What I struggle with, and what I think a lot of our listeners probably struggle with, are the many difficult conversations along the way.
Mm.
Yes.
And we have this need, or at least I have this need, to make everybody feel comfortable. And so sometimes I'll even go into these hard conversations, and sometimes I don't even think the person knows that I'm reprimanding them. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, it's fine, it's whatever, right?
Right.
And almost every person that I've let go, and I've gotten a lot better at this in the last few years, but almost every person that I've let go, during that conversation, I almost have this like life flashes before my eyes moment where I'm like, man, this would have been so much easier, and or not even had to happen, if I would have just had these little conversations along the way.
Yeah.
So what's your advice, not only to myself, but to the agency owners listening to this, on those difficult confrontational conversations?
Yes, I think those smaller confrontations are even harder than the big ones. To your
They
point, the big
are.
ones are obvious. We know somebody messed up. They know the axe is gonna fall somewhere. And so those ones are the more obvious ones. It's the smaller underperformance issues that are an issue, a big issue for a lot of people, because how do you don't want to make too big of a deal, but you don't want to ignore it. So the most important is to set the expectation up front if you can. So when you're making that new hire, set the expectation for what the deliverables or what the measurables are going to be for the role, and be accountable to yourself to have that, whether it's monthly meeting or quarterly or weekly, depending on the type of role it is. And you're looking at their dashboard and you're looking at those metrics. And that is just part of the routine. It's not disciplinary, it's just part of the culture. So, with my teams, I have two consulting businesses. So, with my teams, we meet every single Monday, and everybody on the team is reporting the data for their department. And it's not disciplinary, where nobody's being reprimanded, but we're looking at those data points every single Monday morning. That's how we kick off the week. We celebrate a win and we look at the data and how it is progressing, what we can learn from it, what we can adjust this week. And if we're seeing consistently going down, the data going down week over week over week over week in one department, then they know that there's going to be a one-on-one meeting and we're going to be having some more serious conversations. And so I think the biggest thing that you can do is to be accountable to yourself, to run your business like a real business and hold people accountable to, it can be one benchmark. It doesn't have to be a big dashboard. I typically like 3 benchmarks, give or take. So you've got a little variety for each area and each person. And then you're celebrating the ones that are going well. And if they're relatively flat, you're just sort of monitoring and you're trying to get them, let's brainstorm. And then I encourage everybody to have 3 levels of who's. So anybody that I'm working with on my teams, I'm always, who is your mentor other than me? Who are you learning from? Who is somebody you're looking up to? It doesn't have to be a real person. It could be a virtual person. It could be Gary Vee, right? It could be anybody. Like, who are the people that you're studying from? Who are the people that you are what peer groups are you in? And I don't care if it's a Facebook group. I don't care. Like, where are you getting other information? And then who are people that are supporting you in your personal life or in your role? And right now, this could be AI, right? And so we have benchmarks, and then we have this like support system built in so that we're insulating from the crash and burn situations, and everybody's accountable to the who's. And the who could even be a book or a new podcast. Like, it's just, who are you learning from right now? It doesn't have to be a in-person human, but who are you learning from? And then this makes people accountable, that if their metrics are flat or they're not increasing, they're accountable. Now, okay, what are you learning from one of your 3 level of who's that you can now test and apply to your own benchmarks? And it's just part of the culture. It's part of the culture, right? And this is training yourself to run your business like a real business, no matter how small it is. Doesn't matter if you have 1 part-time employee or a virtual assistant. Get in the habit of doing this at any size. And you'll thank yourself later. You will not have to have those hard conversations with this like little bit of underperformance, because you've established this culture from day one.
So it's make it a part of the process so that they know, hey, if I don't hit this KPI, there's going to be a conversation that's had that's, hey, why aren't you hitting this? What's preventing you from hitting this?
What's preventing you? What resources are you using? It might not be something that I am an expert in myself personally. So then I'm asking them, okay, who are your 3 who's? Who are you learning from? If this is, let's say it's marketing, it's like meta ads, right? Like, I'm not an expert in meta ads. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing now to find out what's going on with meta and the algorithms to fix this data point?
Kasey, it only took me 53 years to realize this. Inner self-reflection, I guess you could call it. But last year, it hit me like a ton of bricks that I cannot work with people who are hypersensitive.
Yes.
So I've had a couple of those types of people. And I'm talking about the people that, you're talking about having these micro conversations or having conversations about ways we can do things differently or better, and they take it as a personal affront.
Yes.
I call it hypersensitivity. I have gotten to where we just have that conversation out of the gate in the hiring process that, hey, look, love you, think you're a great candidate. If you're hypersensitive,
yep,
we are not going to be able to work together. I can't. Yep. I just can't do it. The couple of people that I have in my agency now that I would consider hypersensitive about things being said to them, I just have to have other people work with them and lead them and manage them, because I can't. I'm just not built that way. I'm not built to, not being able to say anything to somebody without them falling apart like a paper napkin, no matter what it is. And I'm not talking about yelling and screaming at folks. I'm just talking about having a conversation. I can't do it. I just can't do it. So
we're from the same generation, right? Our Generation X, we're not overly sympathetic, especially to Gen Z, which is particularly sensitive. And sometimes those personality tests, like the DISC assessments and things like that, can help. But there is a massive generational gap when it comes to sensitivity between Gen X to millennial to Gen Z. There is a big issue with the way that we all interpret feedback.
Right.
And we Gen Xers, we're very hardy. We can take a lot of feedback. Those of
That's
us,
right.
I'm close to the same age as you. We're just a couple years apart. We can take a lot. It takes a lot to bring us down. We
That's
do
right.
not take anything personal. We're very hardy. We're the latchkey generation. Like we grew
That's
up
right.
taking care of ourselves by the age of 8 or 9. And so
Correct.
this new generation with the participation prizes, it's definitely a different conversation with feedback for sure.
100%. 100%. And I'm not built for that. I think Bradley is probably built a lot better to handle those types of people.
Emotional?
Maybe no, just the hypersensitive
No, not at all.
employee candidates.
Not at
I
all.
can't do it anymore.
Not at all.
Every person I hire now, I say, if you're hypersensitive,
Yeah.
let's have lunch and be friends, but please don't come to work here because it's not going to work.
So my team, I think, generally knows emotions detract from whatever you're trying to accomplish.
That's right.
I don't do crying. I don't deal with crying.
Yeah.
However, I have a former social worker on staff.
That is true. I forgot about that.
When somebody's upset or has life stuff,
Yes.
we had an employee a couple weeks ago crying in the bathroom about something personally.
Yeah.
This social worker, she takes off running and goes. So she's a salesperson, but she's also like our chief heart officer, as Gary Vee calls it. You know.
Yeah.
And
that's
that
good to
works.
have.
And that was done by
very-
accident. It was done by accident, Kasey. But I think it's good to have people around you on your leadership team that have skills that you don't.
Yes.
100%.
And so,
Yes.
but no, I don't do the emotions.
Crying.
at all.
I agree. We have to, I mean, the thing to remember is that we're humans. So humans have emotion. We're not robots and AI. Yeah. I mean, AI is here, is not emotional. But with humans, sometimes people cannot prevent their emotional state. Something triggers them and they're going to react in some way, whether it's crying or whatever it is. And I think it's just important to say, if you're feeling emotional, take a walk outside, compose yourself, take your 2 minutes, take your 5 minutes, talk to your chief heart officer. If you have that person, it sounds like you're doing a great job, Bradley, in your business, that you have someone that can actually help mitigate and diffuse that emotional state. But I think it's just important to recognize, be like, I understand we're human. I understand we're going to get upset, whether that is sad or angry, whatever that manifests for you. And I just encourage you to compose yourself, take a few minutes, and let's come back to work and be professional, right? Unless there's something that somebody else did and we need to deal with this from an HR standpoint. But if it's something personal, take a moment. We're human, compose, and come back when you're ready.
Yeah. I think too, I had a conversation with somebody recently that got emotional / offended about something I said in a group meeting. And I pulled the person aside and I was like, look, like, I'm trying to run a business here. I can't, if I'm making decisions around your feelings, i.e. walking on eggshells, I'm not, because I deeply care that I don't hurt your feelings.
Yes.
But because of that, it's actually going to inhibit us from moving forward if every decision has to be made around how Johnny feels about it. Right?
Yes.
The one-on-ones, that's the time for you to tell me, hey, you really pissed me off. Like, not in front of everybody. Like, let's make the decision. And then usually what happens between that, I think what happens between that and the one-on-one is they're able to look at things very like objectively and be like, oh, wait, now I see why this was the decision that was made.
Yes. Because if we think about neuroscience, the way that the human brain reacts is we have our senses. We see, we hear, we taste, we smell something, and it triggers our amygdala part of the brain to react in a certain way. So if we hear something said, and it instantaneously triggers the amygdala into a fight or flight, into a fear response. Something that was said triggered that person to feel unsafe in some way, or
Mm,
threatened, or defensive. And they can't stop that. Like, it's a neuroscience, reaction. It's a chemical reaction. So they can try to control it, but they can't stop that feeling of feeling the amygdala triggering a sense of fear, fight or flight. I now feel unsafe. I call it making your team feel provided and protected all the
Right.
time. The more
mm,
they can feel that you are providing, that the decisions that are being made are in their best interest, and that you're protecting them and what they want and their goals for their role, that this is what's best for them, the more they can feel provided and protected, the less the amygdala will be triggered for the fight or flight, which makes them feel fearful, defensive, protective, argumentative, like you're forcing something, something's being made, a decision they don't like, they're feeling criticized, or whatever their emotional state is. It's all in their head. It's not real. You're not
Right.
doing that intentionally. It's in their head, but they can't stop it. And so when we're communicating to our team, I always remind clients that I work with, whether we're doing a team workshop or I'm working with a client one on one, before they're going to have a hard conversation. Like, remember, the most important to make sure that the emotions stay stable and hopefully in a positive state at the end of this very challenging discussion. We want everybody to feel good after delivering bad news. That's a skill to deliver. And the way to do
mm-hmm.
that is, how are we delivering this bad news, or this not so optimal news, in a way that's making them feel provided and protected for? If we can do that, they'll come out feeling positive, we'll keep momentum, and we'll stop the dramatic responses and tiptoeing around the fragile personalities.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier having, conversations, sort of setting the table at the time of hiring.
Yes.
One thing we've figured out. So I say two intentional things to people on their first day. One is, so we have a pretty uh, relaxed culture, in the sense that, like, I understand people have stuff to do. I understand you're going
Yeah.
to have doctor's appointments. Like, one of the proudest moments, I think, for us was a few years into business. Um, I never, and still haven't enforced, like, you have to be here at 8:30, but
Mhm.
everybody got here at 8:30.
Mhm.
And it's like my whole, like, management style is like, let adults be adults.
Mhm.
If they don't want to follow the processes and hit their KPIs, like, that's their decision, not mine.
Yep.
But what we found is we had a few new employees that would sort of fall into the pattern of people who were much more successful than them,
Yes.
and not really earn their stripes, so to speak.
Yes.
And so I've started having a conversation with people on the first day, and I was like, look, the only way this is going to sound weird. The only way I know how to explain this to you is I need you to act new.
Yeah.
Like you've got to earn my trust and your manager's trust before we totally trust the fact that you're getting your work done, even though you might leave 2 minutes early.
Right.
Right? Like I
Right.
need you to act new. I need you to show up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, say hey to everybody,
Yes.
like, come to work motivated, right? The
Yes.
other thing I tell them, so I worked at a company for 6.5 years that was very fire happy.
Yeah.
And you heard these crazy stories of people getting fired for just, like, stupid stuff, right? Like posting something on social media that wasn't that
Uh,
bad, but just
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And so I when I worked, I was always, like, paranoid, like, there was this level of that. And I've noticed that a little bit in years past here. And so I've started having conversations with people that are new and saying, hey, look, um, if they're short of you doing something egregious or illegal, if it's not going to work out here, you will know.
Yes.
Like, you're not going to get caught off guard. I don't want you working thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired."
Right. Right. Correct.
It's you will know. And
Correct.
and if you don't know, you miss some pretty big signals, right? I'm not going to tell you, "Hey, I'm going to fire you in 2 weeks." Like, I'm not going to do that, but
Right.
you will know through a lot of different areas that it's not going to work out. And I think that frees people up a little bit.
Definitely. Yes, because we do operating in fear makes us feel closed, and that slows momentum. That we're not as innovative, we're not as creative, we're not thinking outside the box, we're not problem solving in the most efficient way when we're operating out of fear. That's that amygdala triggering. Our muscles tense up a little bit. We're always in protective mode. We're a little bit more reactive, a little more defensive. And that is not the most productive way to build the team. And so that is fantastic that you did that, because that lets everybody relax a little bit. It keeps them more in that positive state of mind. And when they feel relaxed, they feel safe, provided, and protected, they will be much more innovative. They will be better problem solvers. They will be faster and
You
producing
know,
if
you
they
know what
are.
it is? It's the feeling you get when you're driving down the road and a police officer gets behind you.
Yes.
You know how to drive,
Yes.
but all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're at 10 and 2, you turn the radio down, you're looking in the rear view, you're rigid.
That's it.
It makes you more rigid when you operate with fear. And
Exactly.
and whereas, it's better to operate fluidly within a system. Um,
Exactly.
so wrapping up here, talk about the book a little bit.
Yeah, so I am in the process of writing a book. Hopefully, it will be published by the end of this year. That is the goal. It is all about how to leverage emotional intelligence for high levels of success. So there is research in there. There is anecdotal stories. There is stories about how I took a company global myself with no business background, coming from a tiny little small town in Maine. But the book is not about me. It is a collection of stories and how you can make smart decisions using emotional intelligence that will propel you as a business leader. So
What's the title, or do you have a working title?
there is a working title that is, I think, going to be the title we'll see, which is called Just Look at It. Meaning, like when you're looking at the scenario, you could interpret it two different ways, and depending how you interpret it and react to it, is going to determine your ultimate success in the long term.
And last question before I let you go. For all these agency owners listening to this, and I think there's a bunch of them out there who are burned out. We are in the most hated industry in America behind
It's
behind the
Yeah.
internal revenue service number 1, insurance industry number 2.
It's never been more culturally acceptable to hate insurance than it is
100%.
right now.
We have somehow stumbled, tripped, and fallen into the most hated. There is not one person that is going to call Bradley Flowers agency today and tell everybody over here what a great job they're doing. If they're calling, they've got a problem. So for all these agents who are experiencing what I call burnout, which that's a term that you could argue, well, is that really a term? Is burnout really what you're experiencing? But maybe they're just burned out. They've been in this business for a long time. And what's your advice to them?
Identify what is the burnout, right? Because while insurance isn't always everyone's favorite industry, let's think about our other, less than favorite industry. Let's think about the dentist, right? Who's excited about going to the dentist? So
Nobody.
nobody. And so, we have to think about we're in an industry where we have clients that are not always happy. We're not always having conversations that are positive with people. We're building a team. We have lots of changes and regulatory issues and environmental, all things impacting. Identify why you're saying you're burnt out. Are you saying you're burnt out because the client conversations? Are you saying you're burnt out because of lack of revenue growth or profitability?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to put one thing on the burnout, what is the one thing? Not all the
Right.
things, because it's very easy to clump it all together. Easy to say we're in an industry that people don't love, and the clients are notoriously frustrated, and like everything is just always a hot mess. Well, that's not true. What is the one thing that you feel is quote unquote burning you out? And if it's lack of profitability or financial growth, then double down on the sales and process and on your pipeline building and on the programs and the offers that you have, right? And if it's not that, if it is time, you're feeling like you don't have enough time, the fire drills, look at your team. So identify the one thing that is you're saying is the burnout. And then once you can identify that, focus in on how to fix that using that three level of who's. who is your team of mentors? Who are your collective pool of people that are peers, and who are the people that are on your team? And when you have the right balance of mentors, people that you're collaborating with, and peers, and people supporting you, you can unlock and release that feeling of burnout and overwhelm. Doesn't mean things are perfect. Doesn't mean that this is an industry that everybody's going to love, just like dentistry and some of the other industries that are, less than optimal. People don't perceive it as positive. Doesn't mean that this is not a lucrative industry. The reason why I like working with insurance agents, I do a lot with healthcare insurance. Recurring revenue is something that is, unique to this industry and the other industries, but that is not always in every industry. You think about real estate, right? It's a one and done if you're a real estate agent or something like that. So that's a positive. So start to look at the positives of the industry, and start to see the bright side. That it's not all negative. You're not doing root canals every day, so that's good.
Not digging ditches.
Yeah, yeah. So look at
I think sometimes it's a false narrative that people
totally. I think it is too.
have, or I shouldn't say a false narrative, but it is kind of a false narrative.
Yes.
You can allow yourself to get into the weeds of, this is wrong and that's wrong and this is terrible and that's terrible. And I'll be honest with you, I think over the past year I've done some of that where I have focused more on the negatives instead of the positives.
Yep.
And it's something that I've had to kind of pull myself out of and actually tell myself, hey Scott, don't create false narratives that aren't really true, or
Yes.
that aren't, maybe it's a half truth, but it's not as bad as you're making it out to be.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
oh, this industry and it's so hard, and the employees are leaving, and our pets' heads are falling off. The Dumb and Dumber thing about our
Yes.
pets' heads are falling
Yes.
off.
Yes.
It's that false narrative that can lead you down that road of this sucks and I want to go do something else with a new shiny toy.
Yes, there's an exercise Tony does at his events, and it's you scan the room. You can do it right now. If you look around, count everything you see that's brown. You do it for like 30 seconds. How many things you see are brown? You look around the room. You can, and I sometimes I do this with a group of people too. It's a great exercise. And then you tell people, close your eyes. Okay, shout out the number of the things you saw that are brown. And people will say like 25, 36, 40, whatever that is. And then you keep your eyes closed and you say, actually, how many items in this room were blue? Don't open your eyes. And people will be like, I don't know, maybe like 12 or 15, whatever. Then they'll open their eyes and they'll look and say, okay, how many things really were blue? And they're like, oh my gosh, 50 things, 60 things. Well, they didn't see the blue things because I said, look for brown. So then they saw brown. And it's the same thing when you're looking for the negative and complaining about the negative, all you see is the negative. And if you start looking for the positives, there are positives in this industry. You look for that, you will start training your brain, retraining. It's called neuroplasticity. That's the neuroscience word of it. You can retrain your brain to see the positive. So we want to use our conscious skills to retrain our brain, that neuroplasticity of our brain. We can train it. And then we will stop feeling like the industry is doomsday and all negative, and we'll start seeing the bright side, and we'll start being able to recognize if we are feeling burnt out, is there a specific problem, and how do we solve this? Who do we need to help us solve this? But first, we do need to get out of that negative state, because remember, negative states slow us down. So the longer you're feeling that way, the slower you're going to move. The faster you can learn how to retrain that brain, the faster you're going to move and grow and reach that level of success that you want.
Kasey, thank you for being on here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
That's a great stopping point right there. So I'm going to shut this thing down. Guys, as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Go become the mayor of your village. Go make money for your family, for your wife, for your husband, for your kids' college fund, for your parents and your in-laws like mine that are struggling out there. Go make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you. I love you too, Scott. I love you so much. Thank you, Bradley. I appreciate that. Kasey, thank you for being here. We appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, you are listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we love each one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.